guys. What am I gonna do with you? Every time a trailer comes out, you just miss so many things. What's up, everybody? Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're gonna be doing another trailer breakdown. In this one, we will be breaking down the newest Monarch Legacy of Monsters trailer. That was trailer 3 for the show, and we're gonna cover 69 things you potentially missed in the show, and I didn't mean to pick that number. Sometimes things just work out for the good guys. That's right, we are going to be diving into the trailer for Monarch Legacy of Monsters to try and uncover where the rest of this season is headed. We're going to be talking about Easter eggs and references to the other MonsterVerse projects. We're going to be talking about potential story leads, and we're also going to be breaking down everything that is packed into this trailer. Spoiler warning for Monarch Legacy of Monsters: if you have not seen the first 5 episodes of the show, spoiler warning, because obviously those 5 episodes have aired, as we've covered on the channel. So if you're not caught up with the show, we're going to be diving into stuff that has already been covered within the first 5 episodes. A lot of the stuff I'm going to be covering in this video builds upon theories that I've discussed on the channel in my coverage for Legacy of Monsters, so maybe go check those videos out too while you're at it, because there's a lot of fun stuff we've talked about on the channel. Jumping into it, we start out with these shots of Kate, Kentaro, and Mei, the trio in the modern day in Tokyo, unpacking the Monarch files from the first episode. We get this shot of Randa, Shaw, and Keiko on a monitor, and it makes it look like that's what they're watching, but for those of us who have seen episode 1, we know otherwise. This is actually the reel from 1952 from the Philippines that Bill Randa took, and it was just revealed in episode 5 of Legacy of Monsters and played for Lee Shaw. This actually probably comes later in the show, and I would guess this is going to be Tim showing Kate and Kentaro while telling them about their legacy and their family's history. Speaking of, Tim then tells Kate and Kentaro, your grandparents, they created something extraordinary. They're actually wearing the outfits here that they wear during the desert sequences from the other trailers, which makes me think this is part of the trip to Africa. If it's during the trip to Africa, that means that at some point Kate and Kentaro are intercepted by Monarch as a result of Mei selling them out at the end of the last episode. And this is probably Tim trying to level with them and be like, hey guys, we're all on the same side here. If it's after Africa, it could mean my theory is correct, and Kate and Kentaro have no one left to trust other than Tim following the whole showdown. Because this show is so heavily about legacy, I could see this setting up for Kate and Kentaro to join Monarch by the end of the season, and it's possible that Tim is able to convince one or both of them to join Monarch's mission. This would allow them to stay involved with Monarch in future seasons of the show when the show continues to move forward. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to keep inventing reasons to keep these guys around. As Tim tells us, they were fearless enough to believe that the world is so much more vast than we could possibly imagine. This is actually the full reveal of a quote we first heard teased in the first trailer for the show. We revisit the shots of the past trio presenting Godzilla's footcats to the military, Shaw and Keiko discovering the Laden, and Keiko's final mission to the Endoswarm nest. It seems at some point Kate is formally introduced to Verdugo, and she's not the only one, as we'll talk about later, and it seems that this is probably the Monarch outpost in Virginia. I imagine that this will be late into the show, as Monarch is formally trying to make their case to the kids, basically to ask them to stop pursuing them or to help them join the fight. She is most likely warning them about the Gamma Burst in Alaska, as you can see the Gamma Burst map behind her. You can also see this map with this red dotted line on it leading away from some markers, and I believe that this is tracking Godzilla as he leaves Africa. The speech Verdugo gives here pairs with her speech from the second trailer for the show. This is the world we live in. Monsters are an inescapable reality that we must learn to survive. Kate seems unimpressed here, with the trailer wanting us to believe. She asks, you knew these things existed? And it makes it look like that's what she's saying to Verdugo in this moment. But I'm actually very confident that this was audio sampled from episode 3 when Kate was talking to Shaw in the car, and whatever Kate says to Verdugo is still unknown. Tim then says, this is your legacy, to Mei, Kentaro, and Kate, and there's a bunch of red and yellow dots behind them, and I'm assuming this is a giant global map, with the markers probably representing Monarch outposts and monsters, like maybe the yellow is outposts while the red is monsters that are known about. I could see this building to the point where Kate's arc goes from hating Monarch and hating the Titans to respecting both and maybe even joining the organization, which would mirror the story that Mark Russell undergoes in King of the Monsters. We have another spliced audio line here where Shaw says something happened that Monarch didn't want us to know about. During this, we see the scenes of the current state of San Francisco, including the soldiers who now patrol the city. We then return to the shot of the helicopter helicopters flying around the portal in Alaska, and actually this isn't something we've seen already. This was not from episode 4. These are Monarch choppers flying around, and you can see they've started to mark the location with green flares. I think we will be returning to that location a couple times in this season. I'm still firmly of the belief that this portal is a portal to the Hollow Earth, which is something I've discussed at length on the channel so far, and I do believe that this has been created by the Ion Dragon. We then see a map marking multiple gamma bursts from Africa to Europe to Mexico and the United States, and I think that these could be Titan locations. They might be representing Hollow Earth portals like the one in Alaska. Either way, I do think these are the things that Hiroshi has been tracking, and they could even be represented by the dots on his map as well. We then again see that red dotted line moving away from Africa, which I think does confirm that it is Godzilla. We finally see a bunch of Monarch outposts on the map, which sets up quite nicely for their global takeover in King of the Monsters, which should happen in canon by 2019. This little Monarch map with the dotted line tracking Godzilla reminds me of the old Monarch website where you used to be able to track Godzilla. We then flash back to the past to see Shaw working his way up the ranks while standing in an office where I would assume he's talking to General Puckett. He says, "We can do this together, we can figure it out," which actually has me quite nervous because I have a feeling he's talking about navigating a secret relationship with Keiko unbeknownst to Randa. We see what seems to be the realization of the love triangle forming between Keiko, Shaw, and Randa as the two put their heads together on this dock, with Keiko looking saddened while Shaw seems to be in love. And it's very possible that another thing that links all of the characters in this show together is that they are all cheaters. Keiko may have cheated on Randa with Shaw, Hiroshi obviously cheated on both of his families, and we know that Kate is now a cheater as well. This again goes back to the distinction between secrets and lies, and could be one of the secrets that was kept from Randa. Maybe even in some sort of weird twist of fate, Shaw winds up being the grandpa of Kate and Kentaro, as it was his kid, not Randa's. While on the dock, I think this could potentially be in Japan based on the background, Godzilla shows up for a little swim. What is he doing there? I'm not sure. Was he drawn there? I don't think so. I think he just happens to be there. This explains how Monarch was still aware Godzilla was alive in 2014, even though his last confirmed sighting was 1954. Shaw says he's not taking orders from Monarch anymore, which actually seems pretty ominous. We then see him with a militant-looking group loading explosives onto a truck, and actually one of the guys in the background is one of the guys who was standing with him in a previous trailer while he was in front of a Monarch monitor. My thought is that Shaw will turn out to be a very ends justify the means type character. I think he's a guy who's out to get the Titans killed, and he really doesn't care about what the consequences of that are. After the tragic loss of Keiko, he may have doubled down on finding a way to exterminate all Titans at whatever cost, resulting in the irresponsible sacrifice of life. This could be why he was locked up by Monarch in the first place. Not because he's a bad guy, but because he's a guy who's willing to let some casualties happen if it means killing the Titans. This is actually exactly what Randa was doing as well. Following Keiko's death, Randa became an angered man, hell-bent on proving that the Titans exist so that he could get military funding to, as he says, send the cavalry. Even though it meant sacrificing dozens of US soldiers, Randa was still willing to go to Skull Island so that he could prove monsters exist. Shaw seems to be following in his footsteps here and maybe trying to bomb the Hollow Earth. I think that could be what they're trying to do, as I think he has previously ventured to the Hollow Earth during an experiment gone wrong. In fact, I think it is the experiment gone wrong mentioned in episode 5 of the show. If all of this is the case, I fear that Lee Shaw's time may have come, as characters like this don't really last long in the MonsterVerse. We saw Randa go, we saw Joe Brody go, we saw Packard go. Especially when they're played by beloved actors, it feels like these characters in the MonsterVerse wind up meeting their untimely demise. And so I think this could be setting up a big season finale death. It'd be really unfortunate, and I really hope they don't move in that direction, because Kurt Russell brings so much to the show and elevates it so much that losing him would be a big loss for season 2. We then see Kate in a warehouse surrounded by futuristic tech and what looks like more Monarch soldiers walking around her, who are very similar to the soldiers she encounters in the first episode, and she is wearing the same outfit she wears in trailer 2 when she's just had enough of Monarch shit and wants to end it all. And she might be torn between who to follow, Shaw or Monarch, with both of them making valid points. Monarch understanding the importance of keeping the ecosystem intact, while Shaw making the point that Monarch doesn't do enough to protect against the Titans. The Ion Dragon, all grown up, then comes screeching in front of a colored beam in the sky, and I think that this could very well be a fight within the Hollow Earth itself on the other side of the portal from Alaska. I think this links into the end of the trailer where the thing is fighting Godzilla. It's pretty difficult to identify who we're looking at here, as it seems like maybe Shaw and May are running around a glowing forest as lights spark behind them, electricity shoots up from the ground, and we see what looks like the ground tearing open beneath beneath them. I think that this could be a Titan, maybe even the Ion Dragon himself, tunneling up from the Hollow Earth to the surface. As I've been theorizing for a while, Hiroshi might be tracking the Ion Dragon, which might be tunneling in and out of the Hollow Earth. This could mean that alternatively, the final fight does not take place under the ground, but in fact on the surface in a forest near another one of these portals. We then have this extended shot of Godzilla making his 1964 styled entrance, erupting through the ground in what I do believe is Africa, well shot, and the crew stand by watching. Verdugo then says, "We're looking at a wave of Titan events threatening the lives of 7 billion people." And this could be what Hiroshi is trying to prevent in the show. I suspect that the scene of Kate, May, Kentaro, and Shaw looking up at something in the desert is very misleading. While it's obvious that they could just be looking up towards where Godzilla is erupting from, I think it could be that they're watching Hiroshi escape by helicopter, as I think that there is the possibility that they confront Hiroshi in the desert only for him to summon Godzilla in order to get away. We then have an extended angle of Godzilla roaring, and it looks really awesome. The special effects in this show are really on another level. There's a really difficult to identify shot of trucks driving away from a whirlwind where I think they're by the gamma lights, and I think that this is in Alaska with the gamma lights being activated. Maybe it's a portal to the Hollow Earth, and as it's activated, as something goes through it or comes out of it, it kind of creates this whirlwind explosion. There's a shot of Randa kissing Hiroshi on the head as he gets up to leave, and given the outfits, I think that this happens during what I'm assuming is Shaw's test day gone wrong, where we see Randa hit the ground during a massive explosion with some sort of test equipment going wrong at the end of this trailer. Tim then tries to defend our trio to Verdugo, asking if those three could potentially save 7 billion lives, presumably by unearthing Hiroshi's plan. Now we arrive at this crazy shot of May, Kate, and I think Kentaro in a sphere, as they are wearing the same outfits as they're wearing in the shots of them standing in front of that old Monarch sphere in the underground cavern from trailer 2, and I think that this is the same type of device that Shaw was climbing up in with his men in trailer 1. I have a feeling that this is going to be Monarch's first attempt at a Hollow Earth shuttle, and it just went catastrophically wrong the first time they tried to use it back in the 50s and 60s. Now, maybe due to Hiroshi building a functional version of it, which it seems like he might have in the trailer, they seem to be traveling to the Hollow Earth. We see a vortex open and a sphere fall through it, which calls back to the imagery of the transport gate in Godzilla vs. Kong. It actually looks like two groups are going in together, but one gets sucked down a separate tunnel winding up away from the others, and I think that's Kate, Kentaro, and May getting sucked away from the Monarch people going into this portal with them. We then see the experiment gone wrong, with Randa being blown back by an explosion as a whirlwind tears apart a platform behind him, very similar to the one we saw earlier in this trailer, again filled with blue energy. I really do think that this is a test day where Shaw and the boys were trying to enter the Hollow Earth. I think that they were going in through these little spheres, and I think that their entry to the Hollow Earth portal may have sucked them in, causing this whirlwind and explosion that winds up, I would guess, killing the entire crew except for Shaw, who miraculously survives. He'll successfully travel to the Hollow Earth and get a look at the world of the monsters living beneath him, and then he will wind up making his way back to the surface, only to arrive highly irradiated with his DNA altered to make him age slowly. Kate is then attacked in some ruins by this creature that seems to be 100% teeth. I mean, that thing is a crazy design. I believe that this is a boar-like monster that we have previously seen in a featurette for the show. It almost looks like the endoswarm nest location from episode 1 where Keiko died, and it could very well be that they traveled back to this destroyed facility, and maybe this is the Titan who destroyed it in the first place. Again, Kate is wearing that brown coat, which she seems to wear a lot in this trailer, as she ventures into the Hollow Earth with it as well. I really do think they're heading into the Hollow Earth. That means that whatever episode she dons this outfit, you can bet that good things are gonna happen, unless she wears it for multiple episodes, in which case you have no idea. The Ion Dragon then glides through this beam of radiation, and it actually makes contact with it, causing it to spark, indicating that it's so much radiation that it's actually a physical phenomenon that can be interacted with. And this is in what appears to be the final battle of the show, as we see Godzilla, the king of the monsters, actually not yet the king of the monsters, standing in front of a forest with his spines and eyes all lit up blue. He looks beautiful, and he is ready to face down the Ion Dragon. This looks incredible. It is a fantastic visual setting for this fight. I love the beams of light and radiation shining up through the ground all over the background, including right next to Godzilla, and that is why I believe that this final battle will be set in the Hollow Earth, where Godzilla will track the Ion Dragon under the ground in order to kill it, so that it stops opening up more of these portals. I just don't think there's going to be a place on the surface where this much radiation is beaming up from the ground. This should, in theory, make Godzilla supercharged, being down in the Hollow Earth, where his atomic breath should be hella powerful compared to on the surface. He can basically soak in the radiation from these lights dancing through the sky behind him, and that should should, in theory, supercharge him. The final shot of the trailer sees the Ion Dragon colliding with Godzilla in this epic showdown, and I cannot wait to see this on screen. The Godzilla design is so amazing here. It's the cross design between 2019 and 2014 that we see in the desert as well, and I really believe that this could go on to become my favorite design of Godzilla in the MonsterVerse. I think it's wonderful so far. The Ion Dragon looks more mature here, with some weathering to his wings, which was a great touch, and the whole setup gives a very Godzilla vs. Gauss vibe, kind of a cool little crossover between Godzilla and one of Gamera's arch nemesis. But this more accurately calls back to Godzilla's showdowns with Rodan in the past, which is always great to see. I love whenever Godzilla fights a flying monster, it's so much fun. Additionally, the size and proportions of Godzilla fighting this guy remind me of the time Godzilla fought the male Muto, who was barely a pipsqueak to Godzilla, and unless the Ion Dragon's ability to create radiation streaks in the sky allows him to bend Godzilla's atomic breath or absorb the atomic energy, I don't think things are going to go too well with him, and I am expecting a brutal smackdown where this guy meets his inevitable demise at the hands of Godzilla. That's the trailer for Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I am so excited for this show. Personally, this is the MonsterVerse that I'm into. I like the sci-fi heavy MonsterVerse. Potentially, if this is the Hollow Earth, I really like this portrayal of it. I'm very into Legacy of Monsters, very into all the things they're doing. I think this looks like the type of Godzilla content that I was promised for the MonsterVerse and the kind of things that I gravitate towards in terms of Godzilla. What do you guys think of the trailer? Comment below and let me know, what are you most excited to see in Monarch Legacy of Monsters second half? Until the next time, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. I really appreciate the support I get on the Patreon. You can check out the Patreon using the link in the description below. It really goes a long way towards supporting the channel and making sure I can keep making videos like this for you guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.